Hi, and welcome to my cozy corner of the internet. If we haven't met yet, my name is Michelle. Tried to start this video a couple times now. It just hasn't felt right though. You know what I mean? But I do want to talk about this book, and I don't think I can talk about it without talking about some of the other things I'm reading, some things that I want to read now that I'm revisiting this book. If you haven't heard yet, I am rereading The Odyssey. This is the Emily Wilson translation, which I'm loving. I wouldn't say this is a book that I ever thought I'd revisit. I say book, and I am going to keep calling it a book. It's actually a very, very long poem, a very long epic written in verse, whatever you would like to call it. Never expected to be revisiting The Odyssey. I think that it is exactly the book that I needed right now. I would like to give a huge thank you to Classically Claire. She's a big reason I ended up picking this up. I love a good book recommendation video, and she did a series of reels that you should go check out. She recommended books based on your Chinese zodiac sign for this new year, which is now the new year, the year of the horse. It was just all in good fun. A lot of those recs were really great, and I'm a year of the ox, and for me she recommended two books, which we'll get into. One of them was The Odyssey. Did I think after that video that I was gonna pick that up? No. Did I immediately go running to the store to pick that up? Absolutely not. It just so happened that we were up in Galena doing a little bit of book shopping. I went to Books and Paper, which I loved. It was such a cute little store. I may be posting a book haul. That might be something I refilm. I'm not sure. Maybe posting a book haul, so stay tuned. They had a poetry section, and now every time I go in a bookstore, I have been checking out the poetry section, which is really fun. And sometimes, like this time, I bought something. And I say this book jumped off of the shelf into my hands pretty much. I saw it, I saw the spine, and I pulled it out and I looked at this gorgeous cover. I haven't seen this cover before, and I knew in that moment immediately that I would be picking it up. I thought about Claire recommending it to me. I'm also planning on reading Ulysses with a group of friends. Ulysses by James Joyce. If you don't know, Ulysses is the Romanization, the Roman form of the name Odysseus. I'm going to be reading that with a group of friends. One of them is reading the Emily Wilson translation. After I started screaming about this literally everywhere, people started coming out of the woodwork and saying it was their favorite translation, which I'm so excited about. I did want to make this more of a reading vlog chatty video. As you can see, I'm quite a way through, so that hasn't necessarily really been happening. I'll maybe try to do better. I picked this up immediately after I went to the bookstore, so I started the intro while we were still on that trip. I was a little bit emotional, I will grant, but I cried twice, and I think I cried like maybe 4 times reading the intro. And what really pulled me in, what really hooked me, Emily Wilson did it. She pulled me in. The poem promotes, but also questions, its own fantasies and ideals. I'm so sorry, Olive is playing with something. They're gonna be menaces this whole clip, so bear with me. Such as the idea that time can change, can be undone, and the notion that there is such a thing as home, where people and relationships can stay the same forever. Can stay forever the same. I'm sorry. I have never thought of the Odyssey in that framework before, and that really has changed my whole reading of it. Reading this as a story about a man who's trying to come home. He's trying to find things out about himself. He's trying to get back to a version of himself that he no longer is, that maybe no longer exists. He's trying to get back to versions of people that no longer exist. He wants to go back to a reality, to a home that no longer exists. This entire introduction is beautiful and so well done. If you're going to pick up the Odyssey, I would highly recommend the introduction as well. I don't want to go too much into all that Emily Wilson is saying, because I think she makes some great arguments and some great points. and she wrote it better than I could ever speak it. I just wanted to indicate some of the things that are coloring my reading and what I'm particularly looking for this time around. A couple other things I wanted to mention based on that as well. This is actually before that quote. So these are the two places that made me cry in the first 4 pages of the intro. In the Odyssey, we find instead the story of a man whose grand adventure is simply to go back to his own home, where he tries to turn everything back to the way it was before he went away. That's the oven preheating. Hopefully all these noises aren't ruining this. I too was a girl who wanted to go home that weekend. So that hit as well, not just the first quote I read, which is later in the intro, that I said, wow, I've never thought about the Odyssey this way. But that first quote, hello, Miss Olive, made me think of something I've read a long time ago, and then something I'm also currently reading. I want to make these videos more like I'm writing in the process of writing an English essay. So I'm going to try that. It's new. Sometimes I've been writing down notes and getting the thoughts more fleshed out. This time just speaking it into existence, hoping for the best. I have told everybody I regularly talk on the phone with in my life about all of these ideas already, so I have rehearsed it at least 4 or 5 times. If you listen to me tell you about books, thank you. I very much appreciate you in real life and on this channel too. I am currently reading Notes from Underground by Dostoevsky. I am reading many things right now, probably too many things, but what's on the mind, the Odyssey and Notes from Underground. How are these two texts even related? What are you doing? Okay. I started this immediately before I left. I know, some light, fun vacation reading. I know. The book, look how small this book is. It's begging for you to take it on vacation. Take Dostoevsky to the beach. Started this guy. Little brief intro on this one because I didn't know anything about it going in. I again read the intro, which was fabulous. This is the Pavere and translation of Notes from Underground. Olive, I'm talking about translations. Okay. She's my camera woman. I did read their translation of Brothers Karamazov and loved it. What I've gathered from the intro, the footnotes, is this, and I mean, generally reading it, I also used my brain, I promise. The first part takes place in 1860s Russia. So chronologically, it's second in terms of the narrative, whereas the second part, which happens prior to the first part, takes place in the 1840s. And what Dostoevsky is really exploring in this one is how this dreamer mentality of the 1840s, this romanticism, it's a romantic period, that's what they say in the intro. So how does this romantic period of the 1840s, how does that lead to the nihilism of the 1860s? I say this is spot on. This book is actually making me sick. Reading it makes me feel physically ill, honestly. It's scary. If you are a millennial or you grew up tail end of the millennials, a lot of us were told you can do whatever you want, you can be whoever you want, and whatever you do, this was a big one I was told, you will feel fulfilled doing whatever it is that you do. And now with all the current events going on and everything, I have felt such a sense of nihilism, and it's just something that I see everywhere. And obviously this has happened before. It feels so current and so real. So how did this romanticism of the early 2000s, late 90s lead to the nihilism of the 2020s? What's going on? Same thing we're exploring here. How did the 1840s romanticism lead to this nihilism of the 1860s? You with me still? I promise I will bring it back to the Odyssey. So in the intro, I've only read one other Dostoevsky, but I am planning a deep dive. If they aren't as hard-hitting as this one, because this one does not feel like a balm, I'll tell you that. In the intro about inner fixity versus inner movement, and I'll just read it. They said it better than me. This is the foreword to the first Vintage Classics edition, 1994, which is also included here. They did a little bit of a revamp for 2021 for the bicentennial. One quality his negative characters share, and almost the only negative his worldviews allows, is inner fixity, a sort of death in life, which can take many forms and tonalities, from the broadly comic to the tragic, from the mechanical to the corpse-like. I'm going to skip these examples because I haven't read all of these. Inner movement, on the other hand, is always a condition of spiritual good, though it may also be a source of suffering, division, disharmony in this life. The idea of inner fixity being stuck as perhaps like a moral bad in Dostoevsky, and inner movement as being a real key to humanity. Not just good, suffering is also in there, but just key to understanding, maybe. And notes from underground, at least so far. I'm into the second part. Also, the second part is called Apropos of the Wet Snow. Like, come on, that is fantastic. This one is about the duplicities of the self, very self-focused, very focused on I. We have this unnamed narrator who's narrating. This is a great book. Talk about reality and fiction. I'm glad that I'm reading it now. I think if I'd read it earlier, I'd be taking too much of what our unnamed narrator has to say at face value. I don't think we're meant to see him or meet him at face value. I think we're meant to read this and critique his worldview, and you can see him struggling and suffering, and that's part of why it's so hard to read. And even in the good times before the underground, you can feel him hurting, and it's him narrating, and that really comes through. I was taking this idea of inner fixity and inner movement into the Odyssey, and I just saw that as something Odysseus was wanting this inner fixity, and he really has this inner movement. And Emily Wilson also writes in her intro. I'll read several sentences from middle-ish of the introduction. The Odyssey insists that Odysseus is fundamentally unchanged by his adventures. Odysseus is an odd figure to represent permanence, since he seems to be constantly changing in appearance, behavior, and social role. He's talking about Athena transforming his appearance, the magical power of his own words, through which he creates multiple different identities for himself. Then here we get a quote from the text. As when an octopus dragged from its den has many pebbles sticking to its suckers, to his strong hands were skinned against the rocks. And then this is back to Wilson's analysis of that. Odysseus's fingers are like the pebbles of the den, ripped by the octopus, but he is also himself octopus-like in his stubbornness, his power of survival, his capacity to adapt to new environments, his multiplicity, and his slippery, boneless, self-devouring ability to change. Emily Wilson's language is so beautiful. This is a side note, but her translation is beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. And this is her writing and analyzing it. So if you can hear her analyzing it, her voice really shines in this translation. It is this power of self-transformation that gives him the ability to reinvent himself into the most marvelous persona of all. The self he was 20 years ago, before he went to war. The ideal of total autonomy and permanent essence depends on the process of constant self-reinvention. The key, just permanence and change as really the key, and what we're focusing on as we reread the Odyssey again here. And Wilson even saying that change is the very essence of permanence. You can't build yourself without change. I think Homer, Wilson, Bever, Volkonsky, Dostoevsky, they're all saying that, I'm trying to shy away from saying the word good, but change is good. It's not just good. It's also suffering. It's difficult. It's hard, but it's very human. My kitty's on all my books. The other thing I was thinking about in those early initial pages was going back and the inability to go back. In law school, I read The Iliac Crest by Cristina Rivera Garza. I wrote an essay on this. I know. I got to write an English type essay in law school, and it was one of the highlights of my legal career. And now here it is coming back. I want to tie something else in with that too a little bit later. But this just came back to me out of nowhere. My friend was telling me this recently, books coming back to haunt us, and it's so true. And I couldn't think where this was from, but I will just read this. So this is from the translator's note. The Spanish term retroceder, which I've translated as to turn back, comes directly from Davila's writing and plays a particularly prominent role in the story El Petito Cuadrado, which documents several characters' experiences witnessing death. Retroceder speaks both to temporal and spatial movements backwards. It communicates the idea of reversing the course of something and moving through time, suggesting a new understanding of the past. For this reason, I settled on the term turn back, as it allows for multiple interpretations, the physical turning of the body, the turning back of time, and the evocation of memory. While we lose the succinct elegance of the Spanish term retroceder in translation, turn back allows for a delightful amount of ambiguity and wordplay as it appears throughout the novel. I forgot to say, this is translated by Sarah Booker. The afterword is by Elena Poniatowska. I believe that section was from the translator. This book is also all about movement and change and memory. And this is initially why I picked it up, because it's about memory. And I think now I'm looking at it in a new light through this fluidity and change lens. When I was discussing reading this with my professor, he'd actually initially suggested Antigone by Sophocles. I have also read that one, also a high school endeavor. I did like that one more than the Odyssey, I think because I read it in 12th grade, not in 9th grade. And also the translation we read was much more approachable, I'll say. I don't want to say better. It was better for me. I personally enjoyed it more and it worked better for me. Reading the Odyssey, thinking about the Iliac Crest, I'm like, do I go back to Antigone too? But that's a digression. That's another time. This is just so weird. Like, everything's connecting. I love when everything talks to each other. No, Panopticon. I don't know how you say it. It's this. Steve McCathery. Classically, Claire was also just speaking about this idea of fluidity in performance and who the self is when other people are watching. And I think that's been added to my further reading list in this weird little deep dive that I'm doing. I've been talking for 30 minutes just about the intro to this version of the Odyssey and the other two books. So I will mention, I got 2 recommendations, not to brag. It's supposed to be a lucky year for us Oxes. So far, not looking too good. But my second book recommendation was The Tempest by William Shakespeare. I've read this twice in college. The first time I read it, I wrote an essay on it and it won a prize, and I'm very proud of that. And oh, how I wish that I would have listened a bit more when the professor said, perhaps maybe you could go into comp lit. But that's neither here nor there. I did end up majoring in English, and that's the important part. I'm so sorry this is here. I got all these used. I would like to speak to Oxford because I love the new edition with that yellow cover, and I just can't buy it because I already have this one. If they want to send me one, that would be fantastic. Anyways, The Tempest. Also, someone was just asking me for recs related to water, and somehow These books all have water as a very prominent theme. I ended up recommending Piranesi, which also has like a myth theme. Don't have too much to say other than reading the intro and my essay that I initially wrote. It was about Caliban and colonization, and in the intro there was a little bit about colonization in there. I have not gotten to that part in the text yet, so I don't have too much else to say, but I want to revisit The Tempest, and I haven't read the intro, and I'm an intro girly again. I used to always be an intro girly, and then I majored in English and fell out of the habit, and now we're back. We're back, baby. No, I don't want to go on another tangent. I'm good for now. So I'm going to put some of these books away and get some more tea. I'm going to do that and then get back to the Odyssey. I'm now a little ways into book 8. For those following along at home, books 1 through 4 are Telemachus, Odysseus's son, in Ithaca. The first 4 chapters are Telemachus in Ithaca. The suitors are going after Odysseus's wife, and then Telemachus goes on his little jaunt spurred by Athena and visits to people, get some information about his dad, etc. Then we get Odysseus with Calpiso. He's been trapped there for 7 years. The events of the Odyssey take place after the Iliad, and he's just fought this battle in Troy, and he's trying to get home. He's been there 7 years. That's where we pick up. The part I'm at now, Athena has intervened. He's getting off the island. He's made his little raft. He's met Narcissa. He's with the Phoenicians, and he's talking to them. So he's going to start telling and getting into his story now. That's where I'm at. Again, with the language, I am loving Emily Wilson's translation. She says something in the intro in the translator's note about Homer's original text in ancient Greek, that it flies. And with this translation, she prioritized a line-for-line translation. So there's the same number of lines. It's not like a literal, Olive, please stop hitting him. It's not literal and direct, but there's the same number of lines to really keep that pacing. She's also translated it into iambic pentameter, which is what Shakespeare wrote in. It's quite pleasant to read English in iambic. I can't pronounce it. I'm not even going to try what the ancient Greek is written in. It's written in a different syllabic form that it works really well for ancient Greek. When I read Pushkin, Eugenie Onegin, Russian is written in yet a different one, which is so interesting. Like the rhythm of languages, you know. So anyways, this is iambic pentameter. There's so many spots. I've just written language because it's so beautiful. I've gotten the octopus part with Odysseus, and the parts that are really moving me so far are when Odysseus is moved to tears when he is thinking about going home. This is in book 5. His eyes were always cheerful. He wept sweet life away in longing to go back home, since she no longer pleased him. He had no choice. He spent his nights with her inside her hollow cave, not wanting her, though she still wanted him. By day he sat out on the rocky beach in tears and grief, staring in heartbreak at the fruitless sea. Calpiso says, I could make you immortal, and Odysseus says, but even so I want to go back home, and every day I hope that day will come. It's just a man that wants to go home. Okay, and then now we're in book 8 with the Phoenicians. My heart is set on sorrow, not on games, since I have suffered and endured so much that now I only want to get back home. Almost like home is this place that's away from suffering, but he is so changed that he can't go back to that place before he suffered. And I'm just so curious to follow this thread as I keep going, as I keep reading. Yeah. So here's where I'm at. Maybe I'll try to update when I'm another third-ish of the way through. This got quite long. I have been wanting to sit down and make this for quite a good long while. And this felt like exactly the video I wanted to make. So thank you for being here and watching this. I'm back with another update. I sat down to film an Odyssey vlog and it turned into something else, which I love. It's from Underground. I finished this book last Friday, so it's been about a week since I finished this now. In the last update, I was a little bit of the ways into the second part. So I finished that second part. I actually read it in all one go last Friday. I was very tired, but I was so determined to finish it. So in that last clip, I had the question, what of the 1840s leads to this nihilism of the 1860s? I think maybe we get our answer, and I don't love it. My last year of college, I took a course on fiction and reality. We read George Eliot's Middlemarch. That was our main big piece that we read. And two of the other books we read that have really stuck with me were To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf and Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. That same professor, this wasn't in the class, but after I took that class, he recommended Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney to me, which is how I found Sally Rooney, actually, who explores a lot of fiction and reality and how reality is portrayed in her works as well. It's been a while since I took that course. I would say that our unnamed narrator from Notes from Underground, he falls into this Jane Austen early juvenilia type work, Northanger Abbey and Catherine type heroine discussion. There really are a lot of parallels between Notes from Underground and Northanger Abbey, I would say, thematically in this style of fiction and reality and heroes and heroines and story, which ties into the Odyssey as well. These books really are speaking to each other, and I never would have thought that. If I had to describe this book in one sentence, I would say this book is like an adult version of Catcher in the Rye. It's like Catcher in the Rye for adults. I haven't done too much of a deep dive on this, and surprisingly, it didn't discuss it in the introduction, but logging it on my story graph, one of the content warnings was mental health. I mentioned the last time that I was talking about this book that was making me feel physically ill a little bit. And reading this, you can really just feel how much this narrator is struggling and how much he's struggling emotionally. You get even more of that in the second section. He's feeling like he doesn't fit in. He's overanalyzing every single thing that he does. He definitely has some sort of undiagnosed mental illness, and you can really see that, and that can really come through. But one of the things that Dostoevsky is critiquing is his inability to live in reality and how the reality just can't live up to his dreams. By God, a novel needs a hero, and here there are purposely collected all the features for an anti-hero. And in the first place, all this will produce a most unpleasant impression because we've all grown unaccustomed to life. We're all lame, each of us more or less. We've even grown so accustomed that at times we feel a sort of loathing for real living life, and therefore cannot bear to be reminded of it. For we've reached a point where we regard real living life almost as labor, almost as service, and we all agree in ourselves that it's better from a book. And I think Dostoevsky is arguing, I think we can see from his narrative that his dreams and what he wanted and his avoidance of his problems led to the nihilism and led him to go underground in the first place. I think that's also what we see happening today. We all want to live online. We want to live on social media, and we don't want to experience real life. Everything feels like such a chore. And I don't think that our narrator wants it to feel like that. There's a scene with a woman who's essentially a prostitute, and he tells her, it's a pity that you're not living. He talks about how he's unhappy and how he just wants to live life and feels like he can't, whether by reason of his mental illness and or by reason of the world he's been thrust into. As you will see, I am not quite done with the Odyssey, but I've made such good progress. I have 2 books left now. A point came up that is related, I feel like, to this idea of home and homecoming that I've really been following going into this reread that didn't appear in the introduction, which has been such a fun surprise, and I've loved following this thread. It's homelessness. It's the opposite of homecoming in many ways, but also related to Odysseus's own homecoming. We do have a couple of homeless characters that appear. They don't get much screen time, but we have some quotes that follow Odysseus himself. So we get this one, which I just adore. This one is Odysseus speaking. And he says, "The worst thing humans suffer is homelessness. We must endure this life because of desperate hunger. We endure as migrants with no home." So Odysseus is homeless throughout this narrative. He has a home, but he's trying to get there. And he's also homeless in the sense that the home that he's trying to get back to doesn't exist anymore. However, we do know he still has so much. He's being given gifts. I think at this point he's already gotten great wealth and gifts from the Phoenicians before he's heading home. And we run into a couple of other characters, especially a few pages before this. We run into a stranger. "I have been doomed to homelessness." So even in his homelessness, he has wealth, but it's saying even more than that, more than homeless in the sense that we would understand in our current modern context. He's saying we're all homeless. We as humans are longing for something. We are looking for something that feels like home. Then Odysseus himself comes into Ithaca, comes into his home disguised as a homeless beggar. "You silly girl, why are you mad at me? Because I am all dirty, dressed in rags, and begging through the town? I have no choice. That is how homeless people have to live. I used to have a house, and I was rich, respectable, and often gave to beggars. I helped whoever came, no matter what. I had a lot of slave girls too, and all the things we count as wealth. The happy life." First of all, something about this that's a little bit discomforting, it doesn't sit quite right, is Odysseus does have a home, and he is literally home. He is physically home. So he himself does have a choice in a way. But I think what he is saying is very powerful. No one is choosing to be homeless. And maybe someone never had something, and maybe they did, and they have now lost it. And we're all homeless in the sense that we've all lost something. We're all seeking something that we might not necessarily find. I liked too how it tied into the idea of hospitality and Greek culture. It talks about in the intro how when you're traveling in these ancient times, there are no inns, there's no hotels. You're at the mercy of the people and how well they care for you. And it talks about the Cyclops, Polonius, and his actions and how he isn't hospitable in the civilized sense, but who defines that civilization. And in his mind, it's quite risky to let a stranger onto your land and give them wealth and not know how they're going to treat you. And look at how the Cyclops is treated. He's blinded and tricked by Odysseus. Even in this passage, he's tricking everyone by pretending he's homeless. Okay, then one more quote, because I can't help myself. I want to tie this back to notes from underground. Odysseus and Athena are sort of together, talking to each other. This book is called The Two Tricksters. It's book 13. So this is Odysseus and Athena out tricking each other. But Athena tells him, "You love fiction and tricks so deeply, you refuse to stop, even in your own land." Odysseus gets home and he's still pretending. He's still living in the fiction of his success, his battle glories, the he that he was. I did finish the Odyssey. Finished it Friday before I headed in to work. So good. So glad that I revisited this very old text. I did go ahead and start the Tempest this morning. This is the Oxford bookmark that my sister got for me. I thought that that would be just fitting. So I read most of the intro. Honestly, there was a section on the play and the stage that went on for 20-ish pages that I wasn't super interested in. Cool history, but I'm more interested in the literary analysis side of things. So I went ahead and skipped that, but read the introduction. I think it's really gonna fit in well with this little curriculum that I have going, and I'm excited to dive into that one. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in the next one.